Welcome to the Dr. Dad's podcast, where a naturopath and chiropractor come together each week to share lifestyle medicine, health advice, and inspiring interviews with some of the top experts in health and wellness, bringing you the latest in nutrition, exercise, ancient healing, toxins and detox, your microbiome, mindset, hormones, brain, and much more. Stay tuned. We're going to teach you how to experience growth daily.
Hey everybody, Dr. Dad's coming at you. This is Dr. David Wardy. Dr. Nick, it's been a couple weeks, my buddy.
Yeah, this lockdown has kind of got us a little isolated from the Dr. Dad's podcast.
I know we kind of fell out of our groove, but today we have an amazing guest. I'm super excited. So I'm going to give this guy's bio in a second, but you and me were chatting about trying to get some more guests on, and I was thinking about some individuals in my life that have made a massive impact on me, and how, there's just some people in this world that if we were talking about this, I was talking to my guest, the guest today about this, but you just surround yourself with these people and they lift you, right? And you learn from them and they make you a better person. And so Andrew Hitchings is one of those people. So today's guest is Andrew Hitchings, and I'm going to give a quick bio on him, and then we're going to get right into it. So Andrew is a longtime friend of mine. I think I've known Andrew for, buddy, it's probably been 10 years. He's a small business owner now in Denver, Colorado. He's done amazing things in his life. His journey has taken him from childhood in rural Missouri to West Point, frontline combat in Baghdad, Harvard Business School, career in management consulting, and now he owns his own business. He's also been blessed to travel the world by motorcycle, visiting 82 countries on two wheels. Incredible. I'm going to make sure that we link his blog spot in the end so you guys can see his pictures he's taken all over the world. So this guy has experienced some serious trials and achievements in his life. And today I really want to get into mindset and talk a little bit about the individual that he is and how he's been able to accomplish the things he has in his life and have the successes that he has. One real quick, before I get going here, I want to just tell a quick story about Andrew. So, Andrew is one of those guys that once you get to know him, kind of like you and me and Nick, we were just like best friends right away, right? Mm-hmm. So I remember meeting Andrew, and it wasn't very different, man. Like, honestly, I think we started talking on Facebook, and then we met at the gym one day. And then we were like best friends from that point forward. But when you get to know this individual and you look at just the way he goes about his life, man, and he's very interesting. Whenever I think of Andrew, he's that guy that no matter what he says he's going to do, he just does it. It's kind of like life is self-serve, and if he just sets his mind on something, he knows he's going to get it done. It's not a question of if, it's just when. And literally I've watched him be that person from the time I've met him to present day. So incredible human being. Andrew, what's up, my brother?
Hey man, Dave, that was the nicest intro I've ever had. That's very kind of you. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I love you, man. I'm excited to have you on here today.
Well, I'm honored to be a guest. This is good, quite an honor and an experience for me. I have to say, I've never done this before. I'm no Tony Robbins, but I will try to live up to that introduction.
Well, he's no Tony Robbins, but he's a Christian Bale. As
yes.
You're gonna want to watch this video afterwards, by the way.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Andrew's doppelganger. He's Christian Bale. So Andrew, kind of take us real quick, man, on a Cliff Notes version of where you're at now, and then how you ended up there. Briefly, if you can just take us through a little bit.
Yeah, so happy to do that. So now I live in Denver, Colorado, as you mentioned. About a month ago, my wife, Marcella, and I bought a small business here that installs home ventilation and attic ventilation, just kind of a really basic but necessary business here in Denver, which is great. Before this, we took a nice long honeymoon, about 6 months long, and rode a motorcycle through sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, and all of Europe. Before that, I spent some time in management consulting, about 6 years working for a large company helping with energy consulting and just kind of traveling all over the world, trying to optimize businesses, which was really a great experience. I was able to get into that via business school. So yeah, as you mentioned, I went to Harvard Business School before that. And the way I got into Harvard was just a really good military career. Had some really great experiences, had some really fantastic soldiers that helped keep me safe. And we did some great things together, and allowed me to tell a story to earn a spot in a good business school. And then before that, man, I spent some time in the military, and went to West Point prior to that, all coming from my Missouri grassroots. So that kind of walks it back, a little bit back in time. It's been a journey, to be honest.
So when I met you, brother, you already served your tour in Baghdad, right? And you got stationed in El Paso at Fort Bliss. And
Yep.
you got in charge. You were a company commander of how many soldiers?
We had about 85. 16
85.
tanks and 85 guys.
Old Ironsides, right?
Yeah, that's the division there in Fort Bliss.
So I remember you telling me some stories about when you were in Baghdad, man, about how when you were doing your tour, every single unit had lost men except for yours when you had done your tour. And I remember asking you why that was. Would you mind spending some time there?
Yeah, more than happy to, man. I think we had a really, really successful tour. It was my first and only overseas tour. I was 23 years old at the time, and we were in East Baghdad from October of 2006 until January of 2008. And the peak of the war, because President Bush had a surge going on, the peak of the war was July of 2007 when we were there and we were getting tired. And also the most dangerous province in the entire war with the highest death rate was East Baghdad, where we were driving around every day. And we had some really crazy, trying times. We did about 550 missions, went out the gate 550 times, driving around, trying to keep our guys safe and still accomplish what we were there to do. And it was, we were very, very lucky. I think it was a combination of having fantastic soldiers, creating an environment in which we could all communicate every day about what we had seen, what we had felt, what we were worried about, and how we could kind of help one another get through it. And then it was just being focused the whole time. I mean, it's just like every time you go out the gate, you'd want to make sure that you had analyzed recent intelligence, plotted your course, made sure everyone was informed, and just be prepared to be vigilant. And so we just had some really good habits. It was pretty wild.
So I'd like to spend some time there. You say focus like it's just no big deal, but I know you very well, and when you say focus, it's like something completely different to you, man. I mean, you were in charge of how many soldiers in your unit when you guys would go on your little runs? How many?
So I had 3 units of 15 guys each at that time. So we'd have four Humvees, and we'd roll out in teams of 15 to 16. And so we just had to stay really focused. I mean, if you think about it, you're in the hot July heat, wearing 80 pounds worth of body armor. Every inch of you is covered because of, should you have an explosion at any point, you got to protect your skin the best you can. And we're just burning down, but kind of every day you'd want to make sure that you're the type of leader that keeps the guys focused. I mean, the second you let your guard down, the second you get complacent, bad things can really happen. It was one of those things where it was almost surreal. We'd go out the gates every once in a while and have plotted our course, and there's the common routes that everybody would go down, and then there was the not so common routes that would take longer to get there, but you're less likely to run into trouble. And my guys and I, we talked every day about how to use the smartest routes. And there was a lot of times when we were under time constraints and we could have made a different decision, and we'd literally see a convoy go down the road one way and we'd say, nope, we're not going to do that. We're going to stick to our plan. And we'd go down into a neighborhood and take the longer route. And sure enough, an explosion would happen and we'd lose soldiers. But it was never my convoy. We always really stuck true to what we needed to do. We stayed really focused. We tried to make sure that we were all healthy and present, and it worked out really well.
It's incredible, man. How old were you when you were having to take on that kind of responsibility?
I mean, I got my first platoon right after West Point. I was 22. So I would have, my combat time was when I was 23 years old.
Oh my gosh, man. You're just like a kid, right? I mean, honestly, man, honestly, man, when you look back at that now, because you're how old now, Andrew?
Let's not talk about that.
No, really, you look good, man. You take good care of yourself. How old are you right now?
37.
So that was a ways back, man. I mean, looking back now, do you think that? Do you think like, man, I was young, or did you feel capable even back then where it was
I felt capable. I mean, I don't know why. I think 4 years at West Point at the academy puts you through so many trials and tribulations of leadership in itself. I grew a ton while I was in the military, very fast. But I think the thing is that if you feel incapable and you put yourself in a position where you feel incapable and you don't have the right mindset to succeed, then, failure is going to be coming, knocking on the door. And I just always felt like we were always in control. I think I was fortunate because I had friends who I feel are just as competent and capable as I was, but they had a bad few days, and it can really shake you. It can shake you really bad. And I never had one of those incidents, and so my courage and my confidence just never really wavered. Call it fate, call it some sort of internal instinct. I don't know, but it turned out well.
So, Nick, go ahead, man. I can see.
Yeah, I'm just curious. Like, what? Obviously, the training had a huge impact on your ability to stay focused and be prepared and adopt some level of certainty in the kind of outings that you would have with the pre-planning and being very proactive. But I'm curious, like, did you have any other episodes of leadership, through high school and whatnot? Maybe like, did you play sports? Like, what sort of rallied you to be able to, prepare yourself for West Point?
Oh, yeah, yes, I've heard this story. I'm excited.
Wait, there's a story? I was going to say, I don't know what I'm supposed to say.
No, you share. Tell me what you shared with me about the kind of kid you were in high school.
I was bullied in high school, actually. I didn't have many friends. I had one friend whose name was Tim Mendoza, this big old huge redheaded kid who was mean as could be, and he always had my back. But I mean, in high school, I was a bit of an outsider because I was a bit of a nerdy guy and didn't hang out with the cool kids. Didn't drink with them much, if at all. No, never actually. And so I was bullied a little bit. And I just kind of got this mindset. I found some courage to say, you know what, I don't necessarily care what you guys think. I'm going to do something bigger and better. And that really kind of set me up to go to West Point. And when I was there at the academy, I was scared to death because I thought, man, I'm going to fail out in like 6 weeks. Like, I guarantee you they're going to send me home. And, there's lots of hazing going on and the academics are pretty rigorous. And, I just said, if I worked hard enough to get here, there's no way I'm going to quit. I'm going to at least go down swinging. And then, when grades came out and they were surprisingly better than I thought they'd be, then it was just like a huge boost of confidence. And, there would have been no reason to quit. I just kept pushing through harder, and came out on the other end much stronger. I don't know if that really answers your question. I think it's just been a series of steps in life that have helped me to kind of find my courage and develop this confidence over time to know that, as Dave mentioned, life is like self-serve. It is what you make of it, and there's no reason to back down.
Mm-hmm. Well, for so many people that put obstacles up in their mind or their physical space, or they make up excuses, it sounds like you've replaced excuses for, focus planning and direction and trust and all those pieces. I mean, these are lifestyle skills that you acquired at a young enough age that you've applied to many different aspects of your life. So I think my next question is there must have been a massive transition coming out of, a tour to come back home. And what did you bring with you into the next venture in your life?
I mean, I think coming back safely, I felt very blessed. Of course, I think you kind of go through phases, right? I think we all know that veterans that come back from combat have some struggles depending upon what they've experienced. And I went through a short stint of that. Luckily, it didn't last too long. But I think I brought back a new level of courage, like a new level of confidence that said, I've survived some really crazy stuff. and it's like, well, what's the next big challenge? I mean, if you can conquer one thing, then you can find something else that's going to make you stronger. And so then you just set your sights higher. So if anything, I think I came back very humbled at knowing how poorly things could have turned out and how fragile life is and how fragile our emotions are. But if you can weather that and you have good fortune, you just turn it into something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what a gift, man. No, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking like, you were tested at a very young age, right? And that built, like you said, that gave you courage, that gave you confidence to like, okay, if I can take care of this stuff, then like, what's next? Like you just bring it on, right? Yeah. And I remember when I met you, I think we had maybe known each other for a year, and I go over. You invited me and Clarissa over to eat dinner or something, and we're hanging out while you're grilling, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna apply to a bunch of Ivy League schools, and I'm just gonna go to like Harvard or something probably." And I was just looking at you like, "Oh yeah, just like that." But you just had this confidence, like, yeah, pretty much just like that. And then you did it, man. Like I remember just within a couple of weeks, or I don't know, it was a couple of months, you're like, oh yeah, I got accepted to all these schools. And then it was like, okay, on to the next thing. Right. And kind of take us down that route, man. Like, so then you headed to school, you went back to school. Yeah. And just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, man, that was weird. I'm not going to lie. I was totally surprised by that. But it's like, if you're going to go to business school, you don't just Google. I mean, at least in my mind, it wasn't worth just Googling like, MBA program near me, right? It's just like my fingers naturally gravitate toward best business school in the world. And I'm just like, that's interesting. Why not apply to that one and that one and that one? And of course, in the back of your mind, you gotta have a fail safe. And so I applied to a few other ones, but I thought, why the hell not? Right? Like, you're never gonna know until you try. And I turned on study mode and focused on GMAT for about 3 weeks and somehow squeaked by and had a good story. So yeah, it literally, I think if there's been ever a point in my life where I just instinctively decided to just make a big leap, it was then, and it was because just nothing to lose, so why not?
So what was that experience like, man? You jumped ship, you left El Paso, you went up to the Northeast.
Yeah, I think it was interesting. I mean, going from very conservative rural Missouri to a very liberal advanced school like that was very eye-opening, to say the least. It was a great experience. I think there I really dealt with a challenge that I struggled with for years after that. And I'd sit in a room so Harvard Business School, essentially you have 90 people they're called sections or cohorts, where you sit in the same room with the same people every day with 90 people. And it's supposed to create a real comforting learning environment where you feel like you can speak openly and have good conversations, strong, deep conversations, but also really argue with one another and state your case. That's the whole learning model, is being able to bring a lot of really smart people in the same room and basically have them debate about business stuff. And I was super intimidated, man. I think I didn't ever really get over it, that I was afraid to talk in class. When I was surrounded by people who had so much business experience and I had none, and they were clearly more articulate than I was, just like every time I would start to talk real confidently, and then my voice would just kind of trail off, or I'd kind of choke up a little bit. And it had nothing to do with the words that were coming out of my mouth. It was purely a confidence issue. It was really frustrating to me, because it's like, hey man, I've done much harder stuff than this, and who cares what they what they think. But truth be told, man, it was just something that was really hard for me. I think it improved over time. I found ways to kind of, be very, very conscious of my breathing and my heart rate, and think through what I was going to say, so that when it was time to speak, I was coherent. But it was tough. I mean, HBS was not the best time for me. I had some personal struggles in my personal life as well that made it hard. Still glad I did it.
So you say that, man, and I'm thinking, like, confidence. Come on, Hitch. That's all you. You're all confidence. But when I hear you say that, it's kind of it's a little bit relieving, man, because it's like, oh yeah, he is somewhat human. Like, he does have he has these periods of doubt sometimes, or he gets scared, or he, like things like that. And I'm sure, like, just like any other human being, like, we have those ups and down moments, right? Where that courage, as you say, has to come forward, where you push through some of these things. And so talk about getting out of HBS, man, because that's another big piece of the puzzle, and where that took you.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it was like, well, I did an internship. The business school was a 2-year program. So I did an internship in between with Harley Davidson. And I kind of thought, man, I love motorcycles. I just really want to go and work in a motorcycle company. And, Harley Davidson is so iconic. And I did an internship there, and it was great, but I didn't feel like I really grew that much. And so when I came back, I was looking for a full-time job after graduation, and I applied to a handful of, really popular and well-known, reputable consulting firms. And I actually, because whenever I was, applying for my internships, I was actually going through a divorce at the time while in business school, and that's a whole nother story. But I guess this is story time, right?
Yeah.
But I had struggled with that, and because my first summer I was so busy, and so torn up over that stuff that I didn't get any job offers. And the Harley Davidson thing was kind of a blessing, because I didn't have any other options. And so then coming back after the summer, I had kind of built up more confidence, and I just said, I'm going to apply for the best consulting firms I possibly can. And it was right. I was right back in the saddle, man, and landed a bunch of really good job opportunities. Ended up working for McKinsey and Company for 6 years, and I think had a really good experience. Learned a ton. Climbed up the ladder for a while, and then decided that I wanted to do something different. But it's a tough place to work. It's very demanding, a lot of travel, but great, phenomenal people. Really enjoyed working with great people that challenged me every day. And, contrast that to my experience with Harley Davidson or many other jobs I could have taken. I feel like my time as a consultant, I was intellectually growing every day and challenged every day. And still, I mean, I had a lot of leadership lessons to learn through that experience, which was fantastic as well.
And you were traveling the world quite a bit at this time, right?
Yeah. I did some work in Singapore. Did some renewable, like, solar work in Spain and the UK, and spent a bunch of time. Spent about 6 months in Australia, working with companies down there. It was fantastic, but it kind of, I got burnt out after a while. And it was about time for a change eventually.
So let's talk about your motorcycle stuff, because this is where because I want to spend some time here, because like logistically what you had to do to travel 82 countries is pretty amazing, and I think a lot of your past of being in the military and all the stuff you've done in the past decade or so kind of helped set you up for that to do it so well, man. I mean, it's just methodical when you take these trips, how fast you speed through these things. But you took 2 trips, right, to do this?
It's been a lot, man. I did one stint right after business school where I shipped the bike. I think my big first international trip was this one in 2013. I shipped my bike down to Argentina and rode kind of like the Che route up and around the western side of South America and wound up in Colombia. I think I did that for about 7 or 8 weeks. And then I shipped the bike back home. I did a trip with my dad and my brother over Christmas break one time where we rode from Missouri down to Panama. So riding through Central America, which was not the most pleasant place to be, but we got it done. I've done a handful of small trips here and there, but I took 2 real big ones. One was about a 7-month trip around the world. You've probably seen, a lot of people have seen Long Way Round, which is where Ewan McGregor and his friend Charlie Borman rode BMWs around the world, I think in 2004. And I saw that route and it just looked phenomenal. So I rode that very similar route, I think in 2017, where I rode up to Toronto and shipped the bike to Lisbon and spent about 6 weeks riding around Europe. And then I crossed into Russia, rode across Russia into Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and then up through Mongolia, and then shipped it from Mongolia to Anchorage and then rode home from there. And then, like I mentioned, and then this last time, Africa has always been a dream of mine to motorcycle. And it just, the thought of like riding around and seeing giraffes on the side of the road and dodging elephants seemed like a really cool time. So we decided for our honeymoon, let's go ride Africa. So we did that. And it's been a blast. I've been truly blessed. I've been safe. I've probably clocked 80,000 miles on motorcycles in the last few years and never had a spill, never had a close call, never lost anything significant. I think, like you mentioned, it goes back to some of the military training of just being very conscious of where you are, what your surroundings are, what equipment you need, how you need to plan. And it's all worked out very well. It's been an absolute blessing in my life.
Wow. As you're telling that story, I remember 2 things. One, didn't Ewan McGregor, he posted on one of your Instagram pics when you took that trip that was similar to his?
Yeah.
Okay. And the other one is, I remember you sent me a picture of one of the Airbnbs you had to stay at in some random city, like in the Middle East one time. And it looked like a bunch of bricks it did not look like a great place. So like you had to stay in some pretty interesting places overnight, and you even had to pitch a tent quite a bit on these trips. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I feel like the thing about motorcycling to me is that like you experience everything. You feel everything. You smell the air, you feel the heat. When you climb an altitude, it feels colder. You can see everything around you. And to me, that heightened level of exposure I wouldn't even call it higher risk because I'm confident enough and I'm practiced enough to where I'm not too worried about the risks, but just the general experience is like, it's just the next level. And then I kind of think, well, I could stay in fancy hotels and do this, or I could kind of live out in the countryside and experience what it's like to be a local person and take the border crossing that's not jammed full of traffic, and take this road that is a lot less traveled. And that's the thing I love about motorcycling is that it gives you the ability to just put yourself out there and see what comes, and you just got to navigate it, And yeah, you're right. I mean, I stayed in some sketchy places from time to time, but I mean, again, it's like you just got to be cognizant of where you are and who the people are around you. And but I honestly think, people always ask me like, what's your favorite place? And I could narrow it down to 3, but I think the thing I've learned is not so much like what places I really love. It's more about people, man. It's like we have this internal fear of other cultures and other places. And it's one thing to like say, oh, I'm going to go and climb on a motorcycle and go ride somewhere. But then there's the people element of it. And like one thing that really comes to mind is, I mean, I've got so many motorcycle stories, but one time I was riding into Russia, and I had this coworker of mine who was from Moscow, and he said, man, Andrew, whatever you do, don't ride through the countryside in Russia. It's so dangerous. And I was like, really, it is? And he said, yeah, the people out there, they will stab you for a bottle of vodka. It's so dangerous, don't do it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to do it anyway. And so the first day I link up with these guys from the UK, and we're riding through the countryside, and we are in the middle of nowhere, and we stop for lunch, and we walk in, and we're clearly outsiders, and this gentleman comes up, and he can see that we don't know how to read anything on the menu. This is not a place that has the menu translated. And he says, hey guys, let me help you order something. So he just orders a bunch of food. And we are super thankful because we're cold and hungry, and we eat it. And we don't even know what it was, to be honest. But then as he got up to leave, he walked up and he said, hey, by the way, I bought your meal. Welcome to Russia. And it's like we're in the countryside where someone has told me it's super dangerous. And it creates this fear of people. And it's not like that, man. It's not like that at all. I found everywhere I went, people were far more friendly than what most people would give them credit for. There's an element of being careful, but you should also trust people. I think humans in general have, good nature. So I digress.
I can't help but feel like this is such an important message for the time that we're in. I mean, we're in the middle of, a global chaos. And all we're hearing left, right, and center is like, don't do that, and how dare you say this, or, and the message is just, have your own experience and just get out of the dogma of what people are telling you and trust the process. And man, like, I got a question for you. You started this conversation of like, this question of confidence in yourself, and yet you defied the logic of what it means to be confident to, pretty much everyone who's going to listen to this, because most people haven't done, a quarter of what you've done. What does like the young version of you think of you now? Like if you could go back and go like, here's me, the geeky kid or whatever in high school that, had this, tough guy or whatever that sort of looked out for him, to like, what does that young guy think of you and where you're at now?
Man, that's tough. I would think that the young guy would be very curious. I mean, what allows you, what is going to happen along this journey that transforms you into that? I mean, in my high school in rural Missouri, it's one of the most poverty-stricken places in the state, and Missouri is not a real thriving state at this point. And I graduated with 94 people, and I think less than 5 of us went to a 4-year college. And so it was just almost unheard of to get on this type of track. And I think the younger me would just be super curious about what's the road ahead look like,
Awesome.
So I want to dial back and talk about fear again, man, because the question I actually had for you following all this stuff we're talking about is, what does that word mean to you, man? Like, does that even play into your world? Fear?
It's been a while since I've felt it. I think the only true fear that I ever feel is potentially losing a loved one. The people that we really count on and the relationships that we truly value. I think that would resonate with me as a true feeling. As far as what I do and looking out for myself, it doesn't. It honestly doesn't. Marcel and I just bought a business, and I think that every day I walk into it just knowing that things are going to happen and decisions are going to be made, and we know they're going to be the right decisions. And if they're not the right decisions, we're going to learn from it quickly, and we're going to keep rolling. And there's no reason to fear. I mean, what's going to happen? We're going to weather it. We're going to survive it, and we're going to be better on the other side. To be honest, it doesn't. I think I've trained my mind over time to know that there's this noise in the background that is fear, but there's no reason to listen to it. I mean, I find that Marcella always asks me, she's like, Andrew, what makes you tick? Why do you wake up so early in the morning and do what you do? And why do you work out? And why do you are you driven all the time? And I honestly, I just always want to be better. And I find that, I guess I just really have a stoic mentality about life. I mean, like Seneca said, he who indulges in empty fears creates real fears. And there's no reason to even have empty fears in your mind because they're just going to come to fruition. So, I mean, I don't know. No. To answer your question, Dave, no.
That was beautiful, man. So, Nick, can you expand on that? Because I see your cogs spinning, man. Talking about things like that.
I'm loving the conversation.
No, but so, like, Andrew, you're basically saying, like, if you don't give it its energy, it doesn't grow. Like, then you don't allow it to. You've created a mindset for yourself over all these experiences that you've had in your life to where it's just like, I just get up and do. And yeah, even if it's there and it's in the background and you don't hear it, you're aware of it, but it's like you operate on another level. I mean, to ride your motorcycle around the world like you have, all through all these countries, to do these tours in Baghdad, to go and just knock out business school, to travel the world with McKinsey. I mean, all these amazing things that I've watched you do in just the short time I've known you. I know I mean, when you say that, I totally believe you, because I know there's just a piece of you like that. You never experience it. It's just like, it's not in your vocabulary.
What I'm enjoying with the story here that you've shared is that, you said you experienced, fear when you're in high school or just discomfort and then little unknown when you went to West Point. And then there's this like fear of public speaking and getting confrontational about maybe you didn't like self-doubt or whatever it was. But the funny thing is that every time you described the success, it was kind of like, I just decided to do it and just sorted itself out. It's kind of like you just stepped into flow. At some point, you just sort of let go of the resistance that was there, and you just made a choice. It's kind of like you were waiting to decide, and then once you just decided, it's like, well, nothing else exists. And what a beautiful place to be in. And how you quoted Seneca there, and it's kind of the same thing. It's like, what are you feeding? You're just feeding the choice to move forward, or you're sitting in stagnation and not able to decide. And, so yeah, you described that journey of just, it was just a quick transition. I was struggling with this, and then at some point, I'm just going to go to Harvard, or I love that. I mean, that's amazing, because that's how it should be. It should just be simple. We just erase everything else, and we just know what we want and we go towards.
Yeah, I mean, I think an example comes to mind, and I think David told me, hey, let's talk about some of your challenges. And I think one of the biggest ones that in my life has been overcoming alcohol abuse. I think it kind of started back in the day, just in college a little bit as a good time, and then I think it kind of went through different phases in my life. Over time, when I was working as a consultant, it was kind of a social thing, and I was kind of known as the party guy, and always a good time, and so I mean, my drinking got out of hand, and I mean, I'm so thankful that nothing terrible happened, but Marcel and I were on our honeymoon, and it just became evidently clear to me that it had become over time a chemical addiction. It had started as a persona for me in the social settings, and then when I found that when I was on a motorcycle trip and I wasn't around the people that I would associate with whenever I would drink a lot, I realized that it was actually a chemical addiction. And I reflected a lot and thought, I've done a lot of really cool stuff in my life. I would hate for it to get derailed by something stupid that I do when drinking, and And coming back to that question that David asked about fear, I think at that point I felt real fear. I thought, man, I really love my wife, my life that I have, and I would hate for something bad to happen. And so on August 9th of 2019, I just said never again and turned it off. And I think every once in a while my mom's like, well, Andrew, why don't you have a glass of wine with us? And it's like, Mom, it's not. I mean, I could, but it's not really worth it to me. I think that self introspection and my fear of something ever going wrong and my fear of not being the person that I want to be and not being the husband that I'm expected to be just tells me no, just don't do it, and so I just turned it off after 15 years of it being a big part of my life, and I haven't looked back. So I guess the fear really drove me to do something courageous in some ways and disciplined. But it was something that I struggled with for a long time.
When I remember you telling me that you felt like you were finally in the space that you could make that decision, right? Like life finally was where it needed to be finally for that to come to fruition.
Yeah.
Which you just said it, right? I mean, you said I have a wife and I have all these things. And so your life had changed to the point, I think you had time enough to think all these things, but it's crazy to hear you think. I mean, you do all these other things, you don't get scared, but you are afraid of the things that matter. I mean, everything matters, but the things that I think a lot of people don't tie into our decision making, right? Like you said, and some of these other things you do, and you see the bigger picture there. And I'm proud of you, man. When you told me that when you visited at the end of last year, I was totally blown away. So.
Thanks, man. It's been good, and I've fortunately have not had to dive into support groups and things like that because I have a good network naturally, and I just kind of trust myself to make the right decision. So it's actually been way easier than I thought. It's like I couldn't picture a world in which I didn't drink socially or whatever, and it's like I just it's not a part of my life anymore. So anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, you make those choices like we're talking about everything else. It just seems like this was just another thing where you just made up your mind and you were done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Feels good.
It's awesome, man. And it's been almost a year already.
Yeah. That's
Golly.
great.
That's awesome.
It also helps that Marcel is pregnant. So we got our first on the way here in August. And so it's like, I think between the two of us, we were a pretty good team to keep each other accountable. She has no option.
Yes.
Well, it'll be like a year anniversary too, right?
Yeah, it's almost spot on, man. Yeah.
It's really cool.
Future dad on the way.
Well, it's amazing. I mean, I love that you shared that, and you talked about the chemical addiction with it too, right? I mean, so many people that are on this path that they're on, and they don't realize the kind of impact that it's having and how it's affecting their their psychology and their choices and their mindset, and then to be able to feel that freedom of not being in it and changing the identity of being the party guy or the guy it's fun to be around when you have some drinks, and know that actually it's not what defines you. I mean, who you are is at your core, your identity is so much more than our behaviors, and our behaviors, should we choose the right ones, can actually really strengthen our identity as well, which is really cool.
So I want to bring this full circle, man. So you shared your journey with us. You've shared your successes. You've shared some of your struggles. And I asked you a question when you visited in December, and I said, if you could give me 3 or 4 values or characteristics of how you live your life, of how you've been able to achieve everything you have and how you've been able to get through it safely and successfully, I asked you to tell me what those were. Can you give us a couple of those today, Hitch? I know courage for sure, right? You said courage earlier.
You gotta find a way. You gotta find your own courage, and I think it means something different to everyone. And I think it's just putting yourself in a position to where you can make a decision that shows your courage to yourself, and you internalize the success of it. I mean, like, everyone's got to do that. And you may have to really just put yourself in, out of your comfort zone. But I think that's a huge part that has defined my journey, is just constantly, putting myself in a more challenging position. I think, man, I think I've been really blessed, and my outlook on life has been greatly shaped by the people that I surround myself with. I mean, yeah, Dave, you and I really connected a long time ago. And after I saw you again for the first time in a long time this spring, I was like, I get this like real warm feeling from you, man. And it's like nothing else. And I just think, Dave has that positive energy. But, I mean, everyone knows if you stick around people that just drag you down, it's naturally going to drag you down. And I tend to not interact with the people who are constantly posting argumentative stuff on social media, and things like that. I'd rather hang out with guys like, Major Everett Spain. He used to be a major, now he's a colonel. He's like one of my mentors in the military, and his motto that from like the day I met him to now, which has been 15 years, is he signs every letter with values and friends. Values and friends. That's what matters to him. And like I couldn't have become the person that I've become if I didn't have a guy like Everett Spain, constantly telling me that values and your friends are what really matter. And then I think the next thing is just always take it to the next level, man. Like if you've got the confidence and you've got the people, just always take it to the next level. There's no reason not to. I think achievement reinforces courage. It reinforces self-awareness. People like to see other people succeed and help them succeed. And it's definitely worth, if you've got the foundation, it's definitely worth pushing harder. I'm a big fan of Stoic commentary, and I was reading some articles recently, and Viktor Frankl said, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. And so it's just like, put yourself in that situation that forces you to change yourself and to become better, whatever that might be. That's a big piece of it. So
I love that, man. I love the way you set that up of putting yourself in the position to have to make that choice, right? Because a lot of people, they don't even get there. And I'm hearing to your life story, and you put yourself in a lot of positions where you just had to make those choices, and you grew massively from all those things. So, way to bring it together, man. Thank you for that.
Awesome.
No, it was, man. Like that, buddy. That nugget right there is huge. And for our listeners, like that's what I wanted to get out of this episode, man. Was your story is incredible, brother. And I know you have these amazing words of wisdom to give people, and I wanted you to give it, and you just did. I mean, don't be afraid to take that leap, right? Because so many of us don't ever take the leap. We just keep thinking about that fear. And you're an individual who's lived their life where, like, you don't think about the fear. You just put yourself in the situation, you take the leap, you make the choice, and look at where that's paid off for you in your life. And it's incredible, man.
It's been a journey. It's been a journey, and it keeps going.
That's why you're Batman.
Yes, as close as you're gonna get real life Batman right here.
What was there was the one Dark Knight movie where he kept climbing out of the hole. And he just kept falling.
Yes.
People, but man, you just gotta persevere. You gotta make it happen, bro.
Yeah, love it, man. Andrew, thank you so much, man. This has been awesome. Thank you for sharing your stories and your wisdom, and I love you for it, man. This has been great.
Thanks, brother. Hey, this has been fun for me. If you guys want a third wheel on this podcast, I'm more than happy.
Sure.
I think I'll bring him on as a regular.
Yeah, we might have to take you up on that, man.
The Dark Knight series.
You name it, anytime, brother.
Andrew, it's a real pleasure, man. I'm always blown away, and I mean, there's not a veteran culture at all in Canada, so I know very few people who've served, a few patients that have, and I'm always just blown away by the kind of mindset and diligence and consistency that it takes to be in the positions you guys put yourselves in. So I love listening to stories that anyone who's served has been in. It's mind blowing, and to be able to reintegrate is a whole nother thing. So the fact that you've come as far as you have, despite being in the situations you have, it really shows that kind of character that you've chosen to develop. And I loved how you said, just take to the next level. I mean, that's such an important message, because we often find a way to stay in complacency because it's comfortable, and like you move yourself into discomfort to find your new level. And that's so many messages that you shared today. So super grateful for all of them. Thank you.
Thanks, Dick. Appreciate it.
Hey, and Andrew, real quick, with our listeners, share your blog site with all your pictures where you've traveled all over the world. I really want people to be able to log on and be able to see those things.
Yeah, I've kind of slacked on that a bit. My Instagram's pretty good, and it's public. So hitched to ADV, like hitched to adventure, kind of. But that's one boat. Yeah, but I'll put it on we can put it on the blog post, and then I can dust off the cobwebs on some of my blog stuff and send it your way.
Yeah, so for our listeners, check out his Instagram. The pictures that he's taken on his trips around the world are incredible. You got to check these things out, and it's really just puts a lot of the visual into what this guy's experienced on two wheels. So again, brother, thank you so much. This has been a blast. We will see you guys again next week. Dr. Dad's out.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please be sure to subscribe to the Dr. Dads and share with your family and friends. You can also follow and interact with Dr. Nick and Dr. David on Facebook and Instagram for a daily dose of inspiration and the latest in health and wellness. Be well.